I don't know if you can tell, but I'm about to start my period. POV, you're at a sleepover at my house and I force you to listen to me talk about books. Tito, don't make that strike two. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jamie and today I'm going to be talking about everything I read in May. It is almost the end of June and I thought that I was going to just smush May and June together and just do a big reading wrap up just to get it out of the way and not have to worry about making two videos. But I practice what I'm gonna say in these videos. Tito, that is a bug carcass. I practice what I'm going to say often when I have like some downtime, and so I was practicing what I was gonna say, and I kept going on rants and like rambling on about books, and I was like, I don't think I can make this one video because then it would be 2 hours long. Because even though I only read, I think, 6 books in May, I've already read 7 and I'm in the middle of 2. Well, I just started 2 new books for June, so I have a lot to talk about in June. Am I doing a book talk mukbang? Let me finish the ice cream first. Okay, I'm back. I ate my ice cream. I'm not going to worry that it melts. The cats are eating cobwebs. Don't ask me. I don't know. Even though I knew the end by C.L. Polk, this is a novella. It is a queer period fantasy situation. Our main character, Helen, when she was younger, 10 years ago, sold her soul after an accident to bring her brother back to life. When you sell your soul, you get 10 years and then you're done. And the demon is supposed to be collecting her soul in the near future. But she makes a new deal with the demon that if she can find the identity of this serial killer in the White City, oh yeah, it's set in Chicago, the White City vampire, she will get her soul back. Her dream is to live a full, long life with her lover, Ethel, in San Francisco, but she can't make those plans because she knew that within 10 years she would be dying. So she jumps at this chance to regain her soul and have an extended life. This is a completely baseless accusation. I have no evidence for this. There's nothing, there's no context for this. I don't have any support for my argument. But something about this book makes me believe that the author is perhaps a fan of supernatural. It's just something about how there is witch magic, like sigils and stuff, but then there's also angels and demons and heaven and hell. And also some of the humor kind of feels like the same humor I see in the like 3 supernatural clips I've ever seen in my entire life. Something about this book just feels like supernatural, but let's make it gay, but women gay, and also let's set it in like 1940s or 50s Chicago. I don't actually remember if it's the 40s or 50s. My main critique is that this book is not long enough. And I know, oh my god, a novella is short, what the hell? But like there's so much going on and not enough time to sit with the characters that are meant to be important and to create these relationships that are meant to be literally life or death. At one point, we learn that Ethel, and this is very early in the book, we learn that Ethel is actually a vessel for an angel named Hwang, and we spend like most of the book with Hwang. So when it becomes very important that we know that Ethel is this amazing, beautiful person that our main character Helen cannot live without. Yeah, you can say all that, but I don't know this bitch. Like, she seems nice, but I don't know who she is. I've been sitting with Hwang the whole time. Like, yeah, so it was not my cup of tea. I didn't like the sort of humor that it had. I didn't like the way it set things up. I felt as if a lot of things were very rushed. I don't necessarily know if expanding the book to full novel length is the answer. I don't know if I would care more about the characters or have time to sit with them, if that would have fixed some of the pacing issues and the problems with, you know, the high stakes that aren't really that high. Probably would have helped. Might not have solved everything, but it probably would have helped. So I did feel like I wasted my time reading this. It is a very short read. I think I read it within like a day. But yeah, I got to the end of it and I was like, I don't fucking care about any of you. why should I? Even though I knew the end, I also hate the ending, and I've hated any kind of ending. I don't want to spoil it, but if you've read it and you know what that is, what the ending concept is, I've always hated that concept. I know it's trying to be bittersweet. I know it's trying to be, we'll live our lives to the fullest now, but like it's still, I hate it. I hate it so much. Kept Animals by Kate Miliken. This is a physical. This was a book I found, I think, at Ollie's, and it was like $5, so I got it. And I thought that this was a period lesbian horse girl book, and it kind of is a period sapphic horse girl book, but it also is mainly about trauma. And there is so much trauma. There is so much going on, a lot of bad things. Most of the things going on are bad. Let me set the stage. This book is set in two timelines. One of them is the early 90s and one of them is 2015. In the early 90s, we follow Rory and Vivian mainly. There are some other perspective chapters, but it's mainly Rory and Vivian's story. An accident happened that involved their families. Not them specifically, but their families. Because they are the ones seeing the fallout of that accident, they form a sort of trauma bond and become involved with each other. And then in 2015, I believe, we meet Rory's daughter, Charlie, and she's trying to find out more about Rory, who seems to be a pretty absent mother, and Charlie feels like she doesn't really know the person her mother was before she had Charlie. We learn that Charlie was conceived the same year that the other timeline takes place. So the entire time you're like, what happened to Rory to make her pregnant? Because it doesn't seem like she was ready to be pregnant at 16. There are 3 on-page rape scenes. My limit is usually 1, but because there were horses, I wanted to forge on. There's quite a few uses of slurs. There is a character who is like supposed to be a white supremacist. I'm sorry, this is such a weird book. There's also horses and lesbians. Or after I had just gotten done reading it, the emotions were high. It is a very intense book. And when you read things with such intensity, you feel a sort of high afterwards. I don't know how else to explain it. You feel an adrenaline rush. And so after reading the book, I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is a great book. I love it. I love what it has to say. I love all the characters. There's nothing wrong with this book. And now I'm sitting back after I've calmed down and I've read quite a few other books and I'm thinking back on this one and I'm like, did I actually enjoy it? Because quite a few things feel like they were just there for shock value. They were just there to be the most horrific thing that could have ever happened and really just wanted to put the characters through some horrible things that they could not come back from. Now, the whole book is about trauma and like how trauma ripples and affects other people and you know how it never really leaves you. I think that's the whole thesis that when something traumatic happens to you, it never truly leaves you and it affects the people around you because of that. And I think it says that. It says that many times over. I don't know necessarily if it needed everything to happen for that to be conveyed. One thing that almost made me put this book down was the McLeod character. And if I had to change anything about this book, if I was able to talk to the author and have her re-edit this book, I would say take out McLeod because it is horrible. He as a character is, I think, one of the worst things. So Vivian is the daughter of a movie star. Obviously, she's very neglected. She lives in this expensive house and has a very rich life, but like her parents are too busy. They don't really talk to her. She feels left out. And you obviously tell that she is acting like this because she wants attention. A former teacher of hers gave her his number. And now they saw a bird. No, Tito. Now she has secret conversations with him. And the way it is written, it is like Vivian is toying with this teacher, that she has control of this dynamic, that this teacher who is very obviously perverted, and she taunts him about this. She teases him about how he's hiding their conversations from his wife and that She knows he's touching himself when they call. I really dislike and I disagree with this portrayal of this inappropriate dynamic because it enforces this idea that a teenager has control, that a teenager is the one with the agency in this inappropriate dynamic, that she is fully aware that he is a pervert and that he is trying to get himself off on her. And because of that, she finds some sort of sick satisfaction of having this attention and this control. And I get that it's a fictitious book, but it feels very Humbert. You know, it feels very much like a person trying to justify that this teenage girl actually had consented to this dynamic and actually had agency in this, when that is never the case. It's never a case that, nope, if you, inappropriate relationships like that with adults are never the child's fault. Never the child's fault. The child does not have any control or agency. They may think they do, but they do not. And I don't think it's right to imply that the teenager is the one in control. To add insult to injury, McLoy doesn't fucking do anything. She has these weird, slightly sensual conversations with him over the phone, and then at the very climax of the story, wrong choice of words, at the very like high point of the story, she calls him because she's like, there's no one else I can call, I need an adult. And so she calls him and he comes to the rescue, and I thought, oh my god, he's finally going to do something. And then he's asked to leave by another adult, and I think what's supposed to happen is he throws a lit cigarette butt out his window as he's leaving. So I think it's supposed to imply that he had a hand in the fire, the big fire spreading. Literally could have been anyone else. It could have been literally anyone else, and we didn't have to have this creepy Humbert perception that a child is torturing this poor perverted man. I really didn't like that, and I almost stopped reading several times because of that, but it didn't seem like he was going to harm her, and so I kept reading, and then I found out that other people harm other girls, and it was awful. And while I was reading it, I was like, I don't know how many more books like this I can read. I don't know how many I have in me. How many more books about just horrendous torture and sexual assault and trauma can I read? I love lit fic, but can I pick something else that's more of a character study on like changing life changing stuff, like you move and you're like, oh, I don't know how to make friends as an adult, can we get lit fit like that? Actually we can't, because actually that's kind of what the next book is about. I read Welcome to the Hyunam-Dong Bookshop by Hwang Bo-Reum. This is a Korean translated novel. I think it was her debut, which means it was popular enough to get a translated version over here, which I always find it cool to figure out what you can cross culturally, because obviously not every book is translated, and so there might be really popular books in Korea that just don't have mainstream success over here, or at least the publisher doesn't think it would. A weird bias view of what's popular in other countries based on what a publisher is willing to translate. Does that make sense? So anyway, this is a slice of life book about a woman opening a bookshop in Seoul, South Korea, which apparently Seoul has like millions of bookshops. Maybe not millions, but lots and lots of bookshops. Maybe I shouldn't leave this outside. This is a slice of life, which means it's not that there's no conflict, it's just that the conflict is very mundane. The conflict is like, one of our characters is having issues in her marriage, but is complaining about it to all of her friends instead of doing something about it. And at the very end, she realizes that maybe she needs to start the divorce proceedings because she's obviously not happy, and it took like everyone in her life telling her she's obviously not happy before she realized that. We learn about the people who are running the bookshop, why they ended up here, why the owner decided to quit her very successful job, her like career driven job, and open up a bookshop that's very quiet, very different. We learn about like quite a few characters who are kind of over the competitive workplace environment and decided to just not look for work and try and live their life as best they can before having to, start looking for a job. I'm getting eaten up by bugs. This was very calming. I loved what it had to say about the burnout that people get with competitive jobs, or like how bad the job market is. Because there's like one character who experiences extreme burnout, or there's a couple characters who experienced extreme burnout and quit their jobs, and then there's another character who wasn't even able to enter the workforce after spending years and years at college because it's so competitive. And so I just really loved what it had to say about work-life balance, and I loved kind of following these characters. I will say, if you're like used to Western media and the like traditional conflict, or like the traditional, what is it, plot line Freytag's pyramid situation, then you might be a bit bored by this. But this is like genuinely slice of life. I brought this up in book club that in America, or at least in Western media, we don't really have a slice of life medium. Like Japan, I think of like slice of life anime is huge over there. And then obviously there are quite a few different Korean and Japanese translated works that are about this like surrealist bookshop, where it feels very calming, and the whole point of it is to sit and reflect on your life through these characters and their actions. Tito, do not jump up there. So anyway, I really enjoyed the book. I liked it because I needed that slow paced reflection before jumping into something dramatic again. Oh, Anatomy. Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz, I believe. Dana Schwartz, yes. Anatomy, a Love Story is... Okay, this is my fault. I went into it blind. I didn't look... I read the premise, or I had the premise pitched to me, and so I didn't really look that far into it. But in my defense, the book was pitched as a lady, so like the title, lady, wants to be a surgeon, becomes like a surgeon student. She is barred from going to classes because she's a woman. She has to study in secret. Therefore, she makes a deal with a grave robber to provide cadavers to her so she can study anatomy, and ends up falling in love with the grave robber. So imagine my surprise when a premise like that is that morbid, that is that like deathy and medical, and it's a period piece. I think it's set in like the Edwardian era. I don't know. Imagine my surprise when it turns out to be YA. YA? What? YA? These characters are 17? It is surprisingly not morbid or gruesome. I think there were one or two scenes that talked about like blood and limbs and eyeballs and stuff, and that was gross. But that's what I was expecting. I was expecting a horror romance or a romor, some sick, twisted, gruesome, dark, romantic horror book about digging up dead bodies to give to your lover. But in reality, this is a very neutral. It's not actually that morbid, and it's not actually that gruesome. And it really does follow the YA beats to a T of like, girl has a dream, girl has to, work around the system to get the dream, girl meets boy, they team up together, they realize that maybe they have feelings for each other, maybe they kiss in a grave, who knows? And then big climax happens. The romance was actually very chaste. I really like rich girl, poor boy dynamics, and I wish that this had gone more into that, into like the groveling and having to like prove your worthiness to this beautiful rich woman who's like so above your status. But we didn't really get that. We got like one or two scenes of, I think his name was Jack, lamenting that he was not of the right status. The person he loved was already betrothed to some earl or lord or something. I am also betrothed to an earl. That's just me. But it's mostly historical. It does talk a lot about the like resurrection men, which was a thing that happened. Like these people did rob graves to provide to the medical students and other things, other deranged things. But then at the very end, there's this touch of fantasy, which I actually very much enjoyed. The twist is predictable, but not in a like, this is so stupid, anyone could predict this, oh my god, this is the worst little thing. It's more like the author laid down some huge clues for you to pick up. So by the end of it, if you were surprised and you feel like this came out of nowhere, you obviously were not just paying attention. Other than that, it's a book about 17-year-olds being in love. I was not in love at 17, so I couldn't really relate. And then lastly, for books I read, I finished The Princess Bride. You can watch the video I posted about it with all of my thoughts. It was like a reading vlog reaction. So my general brief thoughts. Let him up on the chair. What the fuck is wrong with you? If you enjoyed the movie, you should still check out the book, because even though there are scenes that are like cut directly from the page, they also obviously had to leave out some scenes for timing, and those add so much more to the characters that you already know and love. But this book somehow has a weird coexisting between Buttercup being this really in charge character, this character who has so much agency in her own story, but also being super misogynistic to her and telling her over and over that she's not actually that smart and that Wesley is just better than her. I don't know. I don't know how it works, but it does. It really weirdly coexists. So, it was written in the 70s. You got to give it some grace. I'm sure if William Goldman was alive and rewrote it, he probably would. Is he dead? Oh my God. I actually don't know if he's dead or not. I'm going to talk very briefly about my DNFs, mainly because there was one I just didn't vibe with, and another one, why are you eating cobweb? Another one I was very mad at, but now that I've had time to cool off, I've forgotten what I was mad about. The one I didn't vibe with was The Boatman's Daughter by Andy Davidson. I want to say 30% of the way through, and it's not that nothing happened. I just felt at this point I didn't really care about the characters and where they were going. So I just thought, not for me. I'm not able to focus. It's not the same kind of horror that I'm looking for. So I just gave up. Hey, that spider is alive. You ate his home. You huffed and you puffed and you blew it down. I just moved on from The Boatman's Daughter. The one that made me angry was Foul Lady Fortune. Part of this is it is YA. There are some things a younger reader would see and not blink an eye at, but me as an older reader who's read more books, read different proses, had more experience with these different types of writing. Now I read stuff that's pretty common and popular in YA, and I just get really pissed about it. Some of it's prose based. I feel like I got 100 and some pages in. I don't think I hit 150, but it was definitely after 100 pages of a like 530 page book. I could not go 10 pages without looking up and ranting to myself about what was frustrating me. And at that point, that's when I knew I needed to put it down, because I was just making myself angry. Foul Lady Fortune is in the same universe as her previous duology, These Violent Delights. These Violent Delights is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. Foul Lady Fortune is an As You Like It retelling. Plot-wise, is about Rosalind and Celia, or Cecilia, I think it's Celia, being exiled from their court. And I think Orlando and Oliver are also exiled. I think Orlando is. I don't know. It's been a while since I watched As You Like It. People are exiled from their courts. Rosalind takes up a persona of a boy named Ganymede and meets Orlando. Orlando is in love with Rosalind. I don't remember how he finds out who Rosalind is. So Rosalind, as Ganymede, teaches Orlando how to woo Rosalind, and that's where a lot of the comedy comes from. And then everyone gets married and it's fun. I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it. It's Shakespeare. Who cares? This follows the basic plot line of Rosalind is undercover as Janie Mead, because this is a world in which like there's some sort of magic. She's kind of immortal. She's a spy for a secret gang in Shanghai that has become very political, and he is part of the same group, I think, and they are going undercover together. So they're pretending to be married to fight the communists, I guess, or they are the communists and they're fighting I don't remember. Writing style wise, it was as if the author needed the reader to know where everyone's hands, toes, fingers, feet, head, nose, all of it, where it was every single minute. There were so many actions that were implied by concepts or like turn of phrase that she then had to explain again. I don't have the exact quotes anymore, but there was one that was something along the lines of she let the paper fall or she put the paper down, her hand hitting the table as the paper fell from her fingers. You know, I say this every time I have something to complain about when it comes to prose. If it was just that, if it was just a smattering of that, because that could be helpful, that could be explaining things, but it was every single action. And the reverse was true also. There were like implied concepts or implied feelings behind actions that she would then go on to explain. His name's not even Orlando, it's Orion. Why was the name changed to Orion? I don't get that. But anyway, she pretended to hit a mosquito to actually just hit him. And that's explained. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It was really upsetting. I really hated it. And it was the whole book, all of the book. You had to know exactly where everyone's hands were, everyone's feet. And it was so annoying and so frustrating to read. And then on top of that, I don't even want to get into the demisexual representation. I don't want to get into the demisexual. No, I don't know if I should. It's one of those books that is like, let's be queer, let's be inclusive and be queer inclusive. So let's like have some queer characters. One of our characters is trans, which is really great. Love seeing that. It didn't get far enough to see if that actually did a good job at representing the trans community. I wouldn't be able to say anyway. I'm not trans, but you know, I think it's great to have representation. Sometimes it just feels like you are, you know, checking off a box, a diversity checkbox. We are set in like 1930s Shanghai. I don't know Shanghai culture, but I know the 1930s culture of the West. And I assume Shanghai is very similar. Queer people were not really allowed to be out and proud. And we have a character who is attracted to both genders. I don't know if he's bi or pan or whatever. They don't use the words. They just say that he has had boyfriends. But he talks about it very openly with people who are strangers. When this scene happens, it's in Rosalind's point of view and he mentions having a boyfriend or something. And then like she talks about how he glanced over to her to check her reaction and she's like, whatever, I'm not a bigot. Great, whatever. But then we spend so much time in Rosalind's point of view about how she is, without saying the words, demi and or gray sexual, where she feels as if she has to have some sort of established friendship and bond before feeling sexual attraction. And the reason I feel as if this is important to point out, not that like having a demisexual character is bad or that I don't think it's a real thing. In like olden days, you know, women without sexual desires were kind of the norm. Like in like no, not that. Women have always had sexual desires. What I'm saying is that it was believed that women did not have sexual desires, that they did not have sexual fantasies, that a woman who could deny her sexual desires before she got married or before she, you know, was dating somebody, she was a chaste woman. And because she was chaste, she was pure, or she was, you know, a well-bred lady, a well-educated lady. And so it wouldn't have been like second guessed if somebody was like, yeah, I don't really feel sexual desires, and then they have a husband who they have a relationship with and they're like, now I feel sexual desires. I don't know if this is making any sense, but like in 1930s Shanghai, somebody openly talking about being a man attracted to men and just kind of casually glancing to make sure the person next to you isn't a bigot, I don't think would have happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I think it would have been more believable for our male character who is attracted to men to, in his perspective, talk about how this is some secret he has to keep or something like his family knows of, and he has some people who are very close to him that are trusted with the secret, and yet he's comfortable blurting it out and doesn't seem to have any struggles with it. But our character, who is probably more in line with the cultural idea of what a good woman is sitting there contemplating why she's a stranger for not having desires with random people, sexual desires for random people, and that she has to be friends with them first. And she says it in the same, oh my God, she explains it in the same way anyone does when they're like trying to be poetic about demisexuality without having to say the name demisexual. And they're like, why would I ever want to like give my body to someone unless I know the shape of their hand against mine, or the feel of their mouth against my cheek, or so. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but it was that same example that people always use of like, I don't feel sexual desires until we have sung each other's songs. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bigot. Maybe this is my like my most conservative view. And then what was the other thing that really pissed me off? Oh my gosh. Okay. So at the beginning of this book, Rosalind is the Rosalind in the Romeo and Juliet retelling. And she's cousins with Juliet. In the beginning of this book, she said that Juliet and Roma were dead. And I was like, wow, props to this author. Chloe Gong, you actually did a Romeo and Juliet, a YA Romeo and Juliet retelling where they died. Props to you. You know, I love an official death. I love deaths that actually happen, that actually stay dead. I hate a fake out death, and I hate like the world twisting around so that the person didn't actually, the physics of it didn't actually work out and they didn't die. Oh my God, that's a huge bug bite. What the fuck? I read farther because I trusted that this author had the balls to kill off her main characters and do a Romeo and Juliet retelling where they actually die, because that is the point of Romeo and Juliet. They say it in the opening monologue that these two fuckers die. So I'm reading this, and I don't know what prompted me, but I went to the wiki to look up Romeo, the Romeo character Roma. I saw a spoiler, and spoilers for These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. But it said, alive, perceived dead by everyone else. And I went, no, I trusted you. I trusted you to actually kill off Romeo and Juliet in this Romeo and Juliet retelling. But I was like, whatever. It is a YA. It is a romance. I guess the children want them to survive. Let them survive. We have Romeo's sister, I guess. His name's Roma, not Romeo. His sister is there, and she's just talking to herself about Benedict, I think was his name. Obviously the Benvolio character, and Marshall, obviously the Mercutio character. And they're together, they're lovers, and I was like, love it. Benvolio and Mercutio, everyone always has said that they're together, like there is some chemistry there. We'd love to see it, right? Perfect. But then she says that they are alive and well in the safe house. Okay, you can have Romeo and Juliet survive because they're the main characters and this is a retelling. It doesn't have to stay true to form. You can have them survive, whatever. You cannot have Mercutio survive. You cannot do a Romeo and Juliet retelling and have Mercutio survive. I can't say his name correctly. Sometimes I say Mercutio, sometimes I say Mercutio. I don't remember which one's right or not. I think it's Mercutio. The whole trajectory of the story changes when Mercutio dies. The whole point of his character is that he is the comedy, he is the comedian, he is the one that puts Romeo in his place, he is the jester, he is the fool, and then the fool dies. And then it is no longer a comedy. This is when you learn that Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy. I'm not even a Shakespeare scholar. I don't care about Shakespeare. I don't give a fuck about that motherfucker, okay? But you cannot claim that you are doing a Romeo and Juliet retelling and then nobody fucking dies. I'm gonna calm down. I read about like 10 pages after that reveal, and then I was like, you know what? I actually hate this book. There's nothing about this book that has kept me interested, and the only reason I was trying to finish it was because I was like, it's a 500-page book by Chloe Gong, who everyone seems to love, and she's, you know, a darling of the YA genre at this moment, and there's got to be something that like makes people enjoy this story. Also, I hate that the whole Ganymede thing is Janie Mead. I hate that the stand-in for Ganymede is her alter ego Janie Mead, because part of the point of the story is that Ganymede, I guess it's not, it doesn't have to be, but part of the story is that Ganymede is Rosalind dressed as a boy. And maybe she was trying to supplement that by making Celia a trans woman, but I just don't think I don't enjoy it. So anyway, that's why I didn't like Chloe Gong's Foul Lady Fortune. I don't think I will be reading anything else by this author because she definitely really got me with the whole everything. Honestly, there was nothing I really enjoyed about the book. That's gonna be it for me. I know that this is really late and I probably will try and upload the June one sooner, so they might come out right after each other. Yeah, I was a procrastinator. I've been really busy, really tired. I was working on a different video that I ended up deleting. That's gonna be it for me. Okay, bye.